Welcome to Kick. Welcome to Kick. Welcome to Kicker Unmasked Live Weekly. Good evening, everyone. Tuesday. Good evening, everyone. I like to keep the show to about 90 minutes. Kippolicious. Be sure you get that schmedium every Tuesday night. Full tilt boogie. Kippolicious. Good evening, everyone. Twisted Tea. Good evening, everyone. Be sure you get that schmedium. Twisted Tea. Hippopotamus. Cold beverage. Schmedium. Midler. Out in BFE. Out in BFE. At the end of the day, full. Good evening, everyone. Tuesday. Full tilt boogie.
It's been a long road since the original Kicker christened that first pickup truck. It kicked off a car audio renaissance, and upgrading your music in a vehicle was a requirement. America's music machines became living loud over your passion, your emotion, your existence. Outdoors or on the open road, your sound is Kicker.
Laid Bags, Hondo Miller. I mean, such a cool brand, not only with the apparel, but a lot of wall art back here. What inspired the brand Laid Back?
That's hard to say, but I think the good Lord brought us the whole concept in one night, and we decided to create a brand that really focuses on the culture of America, the old cool stuff from America, and just trying to allow people to bring those memories into their apparel or into their garage art, you know, that kind of a program.
And I love it. And it is so nostalgic for that car culture. And you guys have got shirts. And I mean, it's really cool because it reminds me of that American muscle. And I mean, did you grow up as a car connoisseur, as a car fan, as a builder? What was your upbringing in it?
My dad was president of the van club in the 70s. Kansas City Van Club. So, you know, he was a big custom car guy back in the day. And just, I guess it was in my blood from the early ages.
I like it. So now we're going to kind of shift our attention to this beautiful build over here. Take me through this car, which is actually yours.
Thank you. It's a 1969 Chevy Blazer. Came out of Anaconda, Montana as just a front yard piece of art that had been sitting there for about 20 years. And we decided to put it on a Speed Tech Performance chassis, which is an autocross driven chassis. So it's really designed to be driven. Yeah, we made it really pretty, but it's designed to be a performance vehicle.
I like how you call it a piece of art. I mean, is that how you see cars here at the SEMA show?
Absolutely, absolutely. They're all a piece of art, you know, and some art's different, you know, and everyone has their own appeal or their own how they interpret art, you know, and we just feel like this is our way of showing kind of what we can do, you know.
So something that kind of immediately draws my attention to this car and this build is the gray exterior and kind of the maroon accents on this car. What do you like about those colors, and why go with that on this one?
You know, I was always a silver guy, and then I bought a car that was this color, and now I've painted 3 cars that color because I just really like it. It's gray, but it isn't dark gray. It's not what you see out there, and so we really just wanted a unique color. And then the guys at Interior Revolution, who are world-class interior guys, they suggested this kind of a dark maroon to go along with that color, and I had to be persuaded, but I'm very thankful that they stepped up.
Now, the one thing that I think really makes this car pop, the one thing that you can hear from all the way down in the South Hall entrance is the speaker system on this car. And Kicker did you a big favor on this car. It looks beautiful. It sounds beautiful. I mean, tell me about the speaker system, how it really encompasses that laid-back brand.
Yeah, you know, Kicker's been supporting us for about the last 8 years. And we're just huge fans of them and of audio. And so we just reached out to Roger and kind of told him about the build and what we were wanting to do. And they loaded us up with 8 speakers, 2 subs, and the nice marine deck, the media center. And as you can hear, the quality of what they produce is amazing.
Oh yeah, you can literally hear it down the South Hall as you enter, and it is so cool. I think it's the only booth that might be playing reggae, but I love it. Very laid-back style. So thank you so much for your time and showing us this awesome car.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Enjoy your time at SEMA.
Kicker bullfrogs are waterproof, dirtproof, and drop-proof. Feeling froggy? Hop online to kicker.com and see the entire family of Bullfrog products, or visit your nearest Kicker retailer to get yours today.
Oh, howdy. Delmar Hogwallop here, coming to you from outside Mildred's Bait Shop and Lingerie. Would appreciate you all coming, giving a look-see in on the Kicker Unmasked show. Those folks at Kicker, salt of the earth, make some of the finest gear ever tickle your ear. So, mighty fine of you to come take some time off and check them out. And remember, whether you're looking for night crawlers or nighties, Mildred's is your place. So once again, hey, son, put down that armadillo and get some pants on. Oh, my Lord, kids.
Flash! This just in. Extra low frequencies detected emanating from the heavens. Saucer-shaped objects confirmed all over the world. Unidentified flying K saucer spotted delivering Kicker's amazing new Comp Q subwoofer. Built for precision, built for abuse, built for the future and benefit of mankind. Kicker's new Comp Q woofer leaves audiences astounded and amazed as it reveals subtleties in their favorite music in a way that is sure to make women blush and grown men cry. The surround features Kicker's variable cross-section high-roll design, allowing extended cone travel and excellent cone control. It's firmly attached to the cone, reinforced with our iconic stitching. Betsy Ross would be so proud. The injection-molded solo cone and laser X cone brace combined in a single ultra-rigid unit. Venting in the brace relieves performance-robbing back pressure. All this adds up to very low distortion and amazingly clean low bass. The progressive roll blue lace spider adds even more cone control at maximum excursion. The woven tinsel leads are sandwiched between the spider and the lace for durability and long life and to prosper. The spring terminal's heavy-duty square design accepts wires as big as 8-gauge or two 12-gauge wires for multi-sub installations. The high-temp voice coil is rumored to be spun upon the looms of the gods of polyamide fiberglass, along with a reinforced former for high strength and power handling. Now, add colossal magnets, plus a cavernous bump back plate, an extended pole piece created in a single forging, the likes that haven't been seen since the creation of Poseidon's trident. And the result is a driver with superior control and effective heat dissipation that extreme performance demands. The all-new Kicker Comp Q is designed from the ground up to deliver everything you demand from a premium subwoofer. High output, deep, powerful, accurate bass, remarkably small enclosure requirements, stunning good looks, and not to mention the ability to frighten small children when turned up to 11. So there you have it. The all-new Kicker Comp Q subwoofer. Another zenith of innovation and epic majesty from Kicker.
I built my first speaker to be louder. I was playing in a band and the drummer played so loud and the keyboard that I had wouldn't play very loud, and I went to my dad and said, I need a bigger speaker. It's a Fender Bandmaster, it costs $300. He dropped the newspaper. It said, $300? Yeah, but he didn't say no. He said, is it something that we could build? And so that's how I got started building speakers. The thing that I love to see is a product that we made and get to stand back kind of anonymously and watch somebody take a look at it, listen to it, and go, wow. I think that's what really lights my fires, to make products that people enjoy and have fun with. As time went on, I heard people say, you know, Kicker's like a family. I actually didn't set out to do that. I thought it sounded kind of hokey. I thought they were insincere and just saying that. After a few years, I realized, yeah, maybe that's what we've got. And that's the key, is the good people on your team in the band that makes the band really great. Well, I think Kicker is primarily a lifestyle company. That's a little backwards of where I started. I thought we were a technology company and we would make great products, but as time went on, realized that it's about people, and helping people to enjoy their life and what they do. And that's what I do, too. So share the love a little bit, I guess.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and by ladies I mean Sandy. I think Sandy's probably the only lady with us. You'll probably notice that I'm not Kip, and if you watch the promo, you'll also know that Kip's not coming tonight. Kip's not feeling great, so we told him to stay home for a change, so we're going to take over his little show here for a few minutes. We do hope that Kip gets better, and we've been told that there may be a Kip sighting, just like last time I was on this stage.
He'll probably pop in.
So don't be surprised. That being said, yeah, if you're new to the show, it's always at 7:30 Central Time on Tuesdays. That's every Tuesday. It's always live, and there's always something to make fun of because
I don't think you introduced yourself yet.
Me. Thank you.
Maybe he's got the lower thirds up there already. But
oh no, there's no thirds.
All right.
So I'm Aaron with the Kicker Tech Force, and my lovely assistant
Ken Bundy. I'm sure some of you guys that watch are members of the Kicker Club on Facebook group. If you're not, get on that. But some of you guys probably recognize me.
If you're asking tech questions on Facebook, this is probably the guy answering your tech questions?
I answer some.
Yeah.
I'm probably not as active. I'm definitely not as active as some folks on there, but I try to be in there as much as I can.
But your answers are always true and correct, so that's helpful.
I hope so.
So we've got a few things we've got to talk about, housekeeping
right.
and how the show works. It's live, as I already said, and we want you to talk to us through the chat feature. We're going to be taking questions, and we're going to be talking about vehicle integration, system design, and how to put those two things together. We're actually going to have a third guy on camera a little bit later after we get things warmed up. And we did have dinner tonight, as you guys are familiar. We always eat dinner as a crew beforehand so we can tell jokes, and there's this guy you're going to see later. He has the world's best dad jokes, and at one point, actually, I almost had to leave the room because, well, his dad joke turned into a grandpa joke. But anyway, we'll just move past that. And so we had our Texas Roadhouse, which Tim doesn't like it anymore, but Tim has a great story about Xbox. So if we go really long tonight, you may get to hear about Tim's Xbox story, because we already heard it twice, right?
A couple times.
Twice, yeah. I think that was about a half-hour story, but it's a good story. I don't actually have an Xbox, so I had to get an education on that topic tonight. So giveaways, yes, we do have giveaways. Every show we've got giveaways, and tonight, first place, actually I saw somebody in the news feed said they wanted this. We've got Cush NCs, that's noise-canceling headphones for the first place winner. So Cush NCs.
Those are super nice. I use those when I travel, like even if I had my choice of any of them. Cush NC are great headphone.
Mr. Irby gave everybody in the company Cush NCs a few years ago for Christmas.
That was 2 years ago, I believe. That was our Christmas present.
Excellent
Cush NC for every single employee.
Yes, very nice gift. With that NC, of course, you get a t-shirt to wear, an unmasked gray t-shirt, and a koozie to hold your adult beverage of choice. Second place, Tabor 2. Tabor 2 is not a noise canceling, but is a sound quality, amazing sounding set of headphones. And you also get an unmasked t-shirt and a koozie. And then third place, EB200s, which are Bluetooth in-ear earbuds, which are great for active sports and swimming, jogging, running.
Yes, sir.
None of the things that we do, of course. But, you know.
Calling me fat?
Well, what's
I already knew that.
What's that you say about, this is your
post Thanksgiving and Christmas gut. Yeah.
Didn't you join a gym?
I did. Well, 3 hours ago. So, yeah.
He hasn't been there yet. He's paying for it though, so that's good. So, kicker.com/UM Weekly. That's where you go to win. So you have to go to kicker.com/ it's forward slash, right?
Yes, sir.
/UM Weekly. And that's where you go to enter to win the prizes.
Got until 8:30.
8:30? Okay, 8:30 is the cutoff.
So between now and 8:30, make sure you get on there, kicker.com/UM Weekly. Sign up for the contest so you can win one of those great prizes Aaron just mentioned.
And we want to talk about some of the events that are coming up. Of course, we've got guys and girls from all over the country. So we've got some events that are, of course, here's tonight's event. Hey, Ernie, can you show my screen so I can show some of these events?
So you guys head over to the Kicker Facebook page. You click on the More tab and find Events. If you scroll down to Events, you'll see all of our upcoming events, of course. And there's, if you can see Aaron's screen there, today, that's where we are currently.
That's us now, yeah.
Yep.
Lots of Base Wars events.
Yeah, and autocross, of course.
Arena Cross. If you've never been to an Arena Cross event, these are pretty freaking awesome. In fact, we have one that comes to Guthrie, Oklahoma, which is about half an hour from Kicker. And it comes here every, I think it's December. It's really butt cold out there, but it's a great event.
I've been
a lot
to
of
one.
noise.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, they're jumping and freestyling crazy stuff. And then, of course, more Base Wars, lots and lots of Base Wars.
Yeah, you'll see a lot of those. But still, you guys can see all of our events there on our Kicker events page, on our Facebook page. But as for some other events.
Yeah, so for the guys and girls inside the industry, Knowledge Fest in Las Vegas is coming up in February.
February 18 through 20.
And right now, we're scheduled to be there. So if you're going to be there, please come over to our booth, say hello, and sit through two of our classes. We're going to be doing some integration training there.
Some similar stuff, yeah. We got some things planned. So yeah, if you guys are going to Mira or Knowledge Fest, Las Vegas, we're scheduled to be there. Well, also the Miami Boat Show.
Oh yeah.
So Miami Boat Show, February 16 through 20, obviously Miami, Florida. If you're in the marine industry, make sure you come by, check us out. What else, Aaron?
Lone Star Throwdown is on the schedule.
That's one of my favorites.
That's Conroe, Texas. Yeah, you've been there a couple times.
I have, yeah. So that's, for those that don't know, Conroe, Texas is just maybe 30 minutes north of Houston. So if you're in that area, or heck, it's worth the drive, even if you're anywhere remotely in that area, come check that show out.
And a new event that we are very excited about is the Master Tech Expo. And Shane, apparently we're going to get to meet you there. So Shane, hopefully you're watching tonight.
Yeah, he won our contest. So yeah, he got a ticket to the Master Tech. So he'll be there.
And you'll be hanging out with us and hopefully have some good stories to tell.
That's March 6th through 9, Mesa, Arizona.
And that'll be a good time.
Yeah.
So those are the events that we're familiar with. Now, of course, there's not a guarantee, you know, the whole world weirdness going on. We've canceled a lot of
Anything can
events.
change. Everybody, I'm sure, can relate to that. But that's our schedule, and you know, we're trying to stick to it.
We're trying to.
You know.
Oh, and there's a big note here and double-spaced, hit like and subscribe. So it is important that you hit the like button and subscribe, and that way you'll be updated.
Smash that thumbs up and make sure you hit subscribe so you'll get all the updates from Kicker on our YouTube channel.
And, topic for tonight.
We hinted on it a little bit, yeah.
Yes, we did. So I've got a 2016 Mazda CX-5, and it has the factory-installed Bose audio system. It's got mid-range in the dash, it's got a center channel, 8-inch woofers in the doors, some rear fill, and it's got Bose, they call it center point processing, which is like a theater type setup.
Yeah, fancy word for Bose EQ and time correction.
What it lacks, of course, is all this information and all this information. So it's got a whole bunch of this information here. but it doesn't have the sparkle and it doesn't have the deep bass.
Boy, you sound just like the elves that sang the 12 Days of Christmas there.
Hey, I've got a 4-year-old at home, and when I read the princess parts and the goodnight stories, I have to use the princess voice. So there you are.
He practices it often.
I
That's what
do
he's saying. Okay.
every night.
Okay.
But I don't live stream that. So we want to upgrade the audio system. And one of the challenges with this particular factory installed system is it has all the Bose processing in it.
Right.
So
Especially, yeah, if you don't want to swap out your factory head unit, you got that factory amplifier. So there's a lot of different situations you can come in. Even if you don't have the 2016 Mazda CX-5, I'm sure all of you guys have experienced difficulties integrating with some factory systems. If you own anything that's maybe even 2014, 15 and newer, it's practically a given a lot of times, right? So we're going to get into that, deep dive a little into that tonight.
And to do that, we're going to bring on yet another Kicker Tech Force member.
Yes, sir.
Mr.
John Myers.
As seen on TV,
slide
John
over
Myers.
here.
John Myers.
I was trying to enjoy retirement, you guys.
Yeah.
No, you're
Had to
too
get my
valuable.
chauffeur to drive me in.
For those that don't know, John Myers has, well, more experience than both Aaron and I put together.
Yes,
So
more screw-ups.
well, that's true. No, it'd be an insult to have this discussion and not bring him on. So he knows, well, everything about everything. So.
And what I don't know, I won't tell you.
Yeah, that's right. He'll lie about.
Well, Ernie gave me that call yesterday morning at 10 o'clock.
I got the same
by the
call.
way, let's
Yeah.
start you guys are going to do
as
the
soon
whole
as-
show tomorrow night? Oh.
Well, Kip, as soon as we found out Kipper was sick, we got the call and we'll step in and hopefully not bore you guys to tears. But I think it's all going to be valuable information. If you just want bass in a vehicle sometimes, if you got a newer vehicle, it's not always just, run some power wire and plug in, line output converter maybe, and you're on your way. It's not that simple anymore.
Yeah, there's a lot of things have changed. When I first started doing this, it was harder and it was easier. I mean, it was easier because there was no real integration to worry about. It was harder because there was no kits, no harnesses. We had to cut every dash. We had to cut every harness.
Way back in the day, like he's saying,
But
yeah, you had to make
now
your own
it's
harnesses.
coming around, and we talk about what do you want to do for gear? So often we get in our little world, we know a lot about audio, obviously, or we wouldn't be here. But we forget that a lot of people out there don't. They don't know where to start. They don't know how to even get involved.
Right,
in this.
even the beginning, the very beginning.
Yeah,
So
and
for
what do
the
you
average Joe that says, my stereo system in my car, I don't care for, whether it lacks bass, whether it just doesn't sound clear enough, etc., where do you start?
And in fact, I'm going to pick on Aaron here because he told me a story years ago that I will not forget, and it makes sense. You have to know what your goal is. You have to have a goal.
Yes.
And I remember, Aaron, you were telling me about a friend of yours that she bought a new car because she wanted something better gas mileage. So she gets this new car and she's still angry at the car because she's still putting gas in the car the same number of times. She didn't care about the cost. She cared about how many times she had to put gas into it.
So that smaller gas tank? and this
Exactly.
stuff? Oh my goodness.
So you have to have defined
Well,
goals. You have to know what you're
That's pretty
trying
silly,
to accomplish.
but yeah, but
But it brings up a good point. If you don't think about
Sure.
these things, or if the salesman doesn't qualify you, or if you don't tell them what your goal is,
Sure.
they can't help you, and you can't help yourself.
for our purposes tonight, we'll probably just ask yourself, what do I not like about the audio system that I have in my car currently? I gave a couple of examples. For example, it doesn't have enough bass. There's no impact. Maybe it doesn't have any high-end sparkle. Maybe the soundstage is terrible and it sounds like the music is down by your knees or something like that. So what do you dislike about it? And then, of course, you can then develop a goal to fix that problem or that issue that you have. So first thing you want to do is, what do I dislike, to find out what path I need to go down to. Do I need to be looking at amplifiers? Maybe amplifiers in general isn't really what I'm after. It's just better speaker placement.
Yeah, or just better speakers.
Better speakers,
You know,
yeah.
upgrade the stock speakers to
It could be something.
coax.
Yeah, for sure. You could take out those factory speakers, stick in some KX coax or maybe a component set, and you're on your way. So that
More
could be
power is
simple.
always gooder, but maybe not always necessary.
Yeah, I mean, if volume isn't really what you're after, then maybe an amplifier in general. You don't have to walk into the auto store and think that you got to drop $3,000. That's not really what you got to do. So do a little soul searching first and foremost to find out, what you're trying to correct.
Yeah, and then it may come down to, what do you need to buy? If you're happy with most of your system, but like you say, just not enough bass or not enough treble, do you have to replace the entire system? Generally not. You can just add components to make up the area
Sure.
that you lack, especially bass is
Especially
the most
when it comes to
popular
subwoofers, yeah. You can usually add subwoofers without having to buy the integration harness and stuff. There are some vehicles that are an exception, but in general, that's an easy one.
Yeah, I remember, one of our senior VPs came up to me and had a BMW, and he said, hey, this thing just doesn't have any bottom end and it doesn't have any high frequencies. So we get in there, and of course this 2017 BMW was quite a challenge with those like half-inch deep 4-inch speakers.
Yeah, BMW is pretty famous for that.
But all we did was add a set of tweeters, and we put a bigger amplifier, the PXA 201, on the woofers under the seat. And
the factory woofers.
Yeah, that car came alive. We didn't even change the woofers. We just put better power on them.
Right.
So there's a lot of different ways to accomplish your goal. You don't have to throw everything aside.
And you don't have to throw a ton of money and time into it either. Like he is saying, he put in a very modest investment of just a pair of tweeters, a different amplifier, a kicker amplifier on that factory subwoofer that's there, and boom.
And he was happy as can be.
Yep. So figure out what you want first.
Yep.
That should be step one, is figuring out what you're missing. And what would you say, what should you talk about next? What should you think about yourself? Money? He's talking about budget is what it is. And classic salesman technique is you don't really talk budget.
Yes.
So I'm sure
we're not salesmen right now. We're we're teachers.
That's exactly correct.
But you have to kind of have realistic goals.
That's exactly the reason why. Because if I want enough bass to shake the rearview mirror off the windshield, but I got $500, then maybe you should. I'm not saying that you can't have great bass for $500. What I'm saying is maybe you should invest in maybe one good quality 12-inch instead of a wall of entry levels.
And any part that you skimp on, that you cut corners and go cheap, it's going to affect the whole system.
For sure.
And for the better of force. And you're right. I've had people come to me, hey, I want an entire sound system. I need a complete upgrade. It's like, what do you want to spend? $300. Well, we could probably replace your coax speakers, but you're not getting subs, an amp, a head unit. But I mean, that's literally a realistic question, or
don't think you're going to get an entire stereo for $500 and it's automatically going to be better than what the factory had. Look, guys, I'll be straight with you. Factory sound systems are getting better and better every year. So they never have big bass with what we're kind of famous for, and we'll always be able to outdo them. Quite frankly, they've taken a lot of stuff that we've been doing for years and just started to get into their systems. But I digress. The factory system is good for a lot of people, and if you think that you're going to take $500 down to your local audio shop and beat something that's in a 2020 BMW, it's going to be tight.
Probably not.
Yeah, it's going to be tight.
Unless you buy a set of $500
headphones. It's just not realistic. Yeah, headphones. Yeah, you better get the headphones instead of that.
Something I like to do when I'm in this scenario, even with a friend or a professional on the sales floor, is I ask the customer or my friend, I'll say, whose system have you heard that really impressed you? What is your point of reference?
And what is it you liked about it?
Yes, exactly. And then that'll help me hone down what they're looking for.
For sure. If he says, oh, my friend had 412s with such and such, and whatever components he had, etc. And what did you like about it exactly?
Yeah.
Well, it vibrated my nose hairs. All right, so it's clear what this guy's interested in.
There we go.
He needs a nose hair trimmer is what he needs.
Nose hair trimmer, that's right. So
well, and one of the things that unfortunately, dealing with retail as long as I have, actually started doing retail in about 1981. That's been a long time ago, but back then we had, CDs hadn't even come out, it was cassettes, but and you had demo music. Just be aware that if you do go into a store and you want to listen to speakers, and if the salesman pulls out an MP3 or Bluetooth, I say, no, I want to hear what they can sound like. So don't sell yourself short. In fact, if you want, take your own demo music, something know how it's recorded, how it sounds, so you can hear what it's going to sound like on equipment that you're auditioning.
Bring your own CD, bring something obviously that you're familiar with too, a song that you're familiar with, that you've heard many times before, and that how it should sound, and then of course you're able to tell the difference.
And it's always really neat, when I've done high-end systems for somebody, and they're listening to it, and it's like, I never knew that was there, that instrument,
It makes you feel good, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's like, hey, we accomplished what we were trying to do. We gave them something they didn't have, something that sounds good. But you also got to figure out room.
For sure. So
newer cars are smaller.
Yeah, especially a lot of the guys in the feed, we're talking bass most of the time, right? And Kicker's famous for bass. It takes space to make bass, So if we're going to be talking, whether it's just one single 12 or 4 12s, how much space do you have in there? So you got a single cab pickup, 4 12 is going to be pretty tight. Got a Yukon, then it might be doable.
Yeah, how much can you give up? There's family needs,
and that's going to be different person to person. You can't eat up all the space in the Yukon, maybe because you've got children, you've got groceries to carry back there, you've got luggage because you're always going to the airport, whatever it is. How much space are you willing to sacrifice? And then does that space equal what you're trying to achieve? So if you want the most space in the world, but you're only willing to sacrifice 2 cubic foot, It's going to
Probably
be tough.
not going to happen.
You know? It's going to be tough. And these are questions that we're all laying out before you buy any gear.
Yeah,
we don't want you guys to waste money. So you go out there, you think, oh, my friend's got these two, huge subwoofers. I got to have two of those, and then I've got a box, and I can't even fit that in my car. So.
Yeah, and when it comes to boxes for woofers, it's really important. I tell people all the time, if they've got a limited amount of airspace, especially for an enclosure, you're much better putting a smaller speaker in the right box than a larger speaker in too small of a box, because now you got just a really loud mid-range. It doesn't even have the low bass. So,
100%. Don't be afraid to put the 10-inch instead of the 12-inch, guys. If you don't have the space for the 12, don't put the 12 in.
And you guys would be surprised if you've never heard how little difference there really is between a 10 and 12 if you don't have them side by side. No. So you can get a lot of bass out of 10 and 1 cubic foot. I mean, enough to really sound good.
And this discussion is important because pickup trucks are so common these days. So underseat boxes of crew cab or those 4-door style vehicles. I can't remember, the mega cab, I guess is the word I'm looking for.
Quad cab, mega cab.
Yeah, any of those big boys that you're going to put underneath the rear seats. What do you got? 2.5 cubic foot, best case scenario a lot of times to work with.
Best case, and it's weird that those big trucks have no room.
But hey, maybe you're willing to sacrifice the rear seats altogether. We've got some trucks back there. We've done actually some crew cabs that we've walled off. So ask those questions yourself. You got a child seat to take care of that's got to take up one of those seats, or can you sacrifice maybe, so a lot of the seats, they fold up 60-40, so maybe you can fold up the 40.
I've done several of those, but 2 12s in the 40 section, and you still have usable back seat, but you still have 2 vented 12s.
Maybe you carry tools for your job, or you can do a blow through in the bed of the truck, So think about what you're going to do before you go out there and start spending money. Give that a long, hard, seriously, again, soul searching type thing. Do I really need 4 12s? Yeah, I do.
Once a month, I need 4 12s.
Well, it means because we're getting older. Every single day when I was younger, I could have used it all.
Every bit of it.
Anymore, for sure.
And the other thing you also have to think about is not only how big the enclosure is going to be, you have to decide what type of music you're going to listen to.
Of
And, do I need a sealed enclosure? Do I need a vented enclosure? Do I need free air?
What type of music do you listen to? What type of enclosure might benefit me? Of course, you can play with that stuff if you're really into it. You can play with that in some box modeling software or something like that to be able to compare sealed and vented with the size requirements that you have access to in your particular vehicle.
Yeah, and you talk about vented enclosures, not to go really down the whole enclosure path. I think we've done that. We got some good stuff on the internet.
We've got some other unmasked weeklies if you want to dive deep into different enclosure types, etc.
But a vented enclosure is more efficient, so you get more out of it, but it's much larger. So there's always a trade-off. Just remember, car audio, there's always give and take. There is no magic bullet that's going to do everything.
Right.
Even when you start talking about passive radiators, they give you the output of a vented enclosure, the size of a sealed enclosure, but you sacrifice some efficiency. So there's always the give and take. So, but make sure you know what type of music you're listening to. If you guy that likes speed metal or something really tight, you want a sealed box. If you like the long drawn out the hip hop, that style of bass, and maybe a vented box is for you.
More inclined to be on the vented side of it. So John, have you ever driven one of those street banger trucks we have back there? It's got six 15-inch L7 Q-Class L7s and 3 KXA 2400 ones on them. Yep. We built 3 or 4 of those, Tim?
3 of those.
3 of them? Built 3 of those trucks. Have you ever driven one?
I actually drove one from LA up to Portland, and of course the drive was incredible, but I didn't have to worry about falling asleep.
Well, that's true. Point I'm getting at is, you're a little shorter than I am.
Yeah, well.
So there ain't much leg room in there because you got to have the seat.
I didn't notice that part.
The seat slid all the way forward for the most part, practically, to even drive the thing. And the reason I bring that up is, again, when you're installing that audio gear, whether it be a large subwoofer box or even mounting amplifiers, what sacrifices in the utility of the vehicle are you going to have to make? And that goes along with child seats too. So if you got to put a child seat in the back, make sure it's got all those connections. Make sure the seats, of course, are going to be able to slide all the way forward, all the way back, going to be able to recline all the way, et cetera, et cetera.
Something else which I used to stress quite a bit with cell phones, it's not quite as important anymore, but access to your spare tire. You got a hatchback with a tire inside. You build a whole subwoofer enclosure and amp rack over it.
Right on top of it.
Yeah, you got to tear all that out to get to your spare tire. Probably not a good idea, but that's what AAA is for.
And if you're willing to sacrifice,
can a fix-a-flat.
Yeah, if you're willing to use fix-a-flat and hope that works instead, that's up to you. But again, it needs to be thought of before you spend that first cent.
Guys, let me interrupt you real quick.
Sure.
Basehead 30 says, I bought a vehicle that fits my subs. So, yeah.
I like the way you think.
Yeah, exactly.
He's a professional.
That's right.
That's kind of me built the house around the audio system.
But
That's true.
A more realistic question a gentleman is asking. Paul is saying, what sub do you recommend for a 2021 Ford Ranger crew cab behind the seat?
Here again, it depends on the type of music you're listening to. Do you want sealed? Do you want vented? How much output do you want?
So I don't have a ton of vehicle experience with that particular car. Just came out the you said new Ranger, right?
21, yeah, 21 Ranger.
Yeah, so the new Ranger, well, it's a couple of years old now, but COVID's kind of smashed it all together. So
yeah,
haven't played with the new Ranger body style all that much to know how much mounting depth is back there. But Comp RT, L7T, L7T if you can fit it.
TCW RTs, with the passive radiators.
Yeah,
and something else, talking about pickups.
Oh, the preloaded with the passive radiator. Yeah, those
Yeah.
would be nice too if you're not going to design a custom enclosure.
And
those would be nice.
Talking about pickups that, especially with like the TCW RT, which are with the passive radiators, any type of pickup box, you measure the box, and all right, I get enough room to fit that box in. Well, don't forget there's latches for seats and things that can interfere, and more importantly, do not forget the importance of a speaker grill. That's going to add some,
There's very few trucks that I've seen with a subwoofer behind the seat where if you lean the seat forward, there's not an impression.
Big ring.
Yeah, an impression from the speaker.
Worn all the
hitting it.
fuzz off the velour.
And you know what? I'm personally guilty of that many years ago myself. So
Hey guys, real quick, I want to throw
sure.
this out. Nick says, what if you like metal and wrap? What kind of sub enclosure?
Well, there's a couple things you can do for that, and not to get really crazy, but back in the day, I like really large sealed boxes. So, in fact, I'd like to say 1.75 cubic foot on 10s, for really deep bass. But what I've done for people in the past is I've actually built them enclosures that were ported enclosures when they really wanted to bang, but when they wanted sound quality, we made a plug that would fit in the port and became a very large sealed enclosure.
Yeah.
One of the enclosures I built, it had been, back about 1990 for a guy. We actually built actuators inside the enclosure. You could push a button and close a door inside the enclosure.
fancy.
So, like I say,
You could do that. That's a little both.
It's a little extreme.
If
but
somebody came to me wanting that, I would probably just go seal enclosure, but make it on the larger side,
Yep,
so you get
and
a little
plenty
more
of
bottom end
power
extension. Yeah, that bottom end extension will grow as the sealed box grows. So large sealed would be my answer. If you aren't going to get insanely fancy like Mr. John Myers over here with his.
I had fun. It was
So we talked a lot about subwoofer enclosures, making sure you have room for them, making sure that the seats and the rest of the vehicle function like it should.
What else goes with subwoofers?
An amplifier, right?
Yep,
Everybody obviously knows you got to have an amp that goes with it.
Do not underpower your subwoofers, people. That is
Sure.
the biggest reason why we have a stack of them in warranty.
Sure.
I'd like to do a show sometime and do the math and show you guys that if you're burning up voice coils, you don't have enough power 98% of the time.
Sure. That's a whole separate thing of what we're going on. Right now we're talking about physically. What should you do before you buy any product? Think about where you're going to put those amplifiers.
Yep.
So plan out the system as like the overall goal of what we've been talking about here. So you've got your subwoofer, you know what type of enclosure you're doing, how big it's going to be, where do the amps go?
And you got to have the power to drive the subwoofers,
Sure.
which means you
Is
need
the
a
amp
big
this
enough
big?
amplifier.
Is the amp this big physically?
Yep, and
You
where's
know?
it going to fit? I mean, here again, you talk about integrating it within the vehicle. You're going to put the amp under the seat. How many times have you put an amp under the seat, then you're going to move the seat back and it hits?
It depends, yeah. Especially if you got power seats. That usually don't have a ton of depth, or height rather, underneath those front seats. So if you got power seats, that's generally almost always a no-go unless you're using one of the tiny amplifiers like the Key 501 or something like that. If you're talking 1,000 plus watts, then that's going to be an issue. So maybe you can put it under the front seat. Maybe you got the subwoofer enclosure underneath the back seat of the crew cab truck, and you can put the amps behind the seat.
Yep, and that's what we've been doing a lot lately.
We have been doing a lot of that. So just think about where you're going to mount that.
Didn't we on that Toyota? We did
We
the
did a
210s under the seat.
F-150.
Or F-150. It was a great truck of some kind.
Yeah.
Great.
Real
It
quick,
was before
John,
Christmas. It's been a minute.
your Mustang got called out by a couple guys as being an awesome car.
Oh, appreciate it.
And one guy's asking, what 8-inch mid-bass do you have in your doors?
Those are the Comp RTs.
And you're running them as mid-bass, not subwoofers?
Yeah, they're actually run from 60 up to 130 hertz. They're dedicated. There's 500 watts in each one of those. Like I say,
He's got power.
power.
Problem there.
So it's the
Stacks
5-channel, the IQ 1005s have actually got the subsection, the 500 watts driving of the two amplifiers, one driving each of the mid-bass alone. So it's all about power. And like I say, when you get into a system that extreme, that's something we're going to get to in the end, you got to know how to set it all up. So.
For sure. Dial it in. So now you've physically located a spot you're going to mount the amplifier. So we've talked about subwoofer enclosures, where you're going to mount the amp. Where shouldn't you mount an amp?
Well, there's a lot of places you should mount it, like underneath the vehicle, where it can't get any airflow.
Yeah, outside the vehicle is usually almost always a no-no unless
And don't
you've got...
put them in the bed of your truck.
Yeah, in the bed of the truck.
Even
you've got
if it's a
hard
marine
shell
amp, don't do that.
Tonneau cover maybe type thing. Yeah, so unless it's a marine amplifier, it's going to be used to that moisture and that those extreme conditions.
Well,
inside the vehicle, maybe under the carpet. What do you think, John?
Yeah, I probably wouldn't do that.
Yeah,
I've tucked a few under floor mats.
I've seen some posts, on various groups I'm engaged with. People asking that the amplifier gets warm and then they think that there might be something wrong with it. Oh, it's getting a little hot. I don't think it's working right. Amps get hot, guys.
They're a byproduct of power.
That's exactly right. So efficiency is a thing. We all know amplifiers are blank % efficient. All the other, let's say 71%. Well, the other 29% is generally heat.
Yeah, in fact, I've got a presentation I used to do on the trainings where, showing the comparison of, a 1,000-watt amplifier 25 years ago, the ZR1000 was this big.
Yep.
Then we got to the ZX, the Class D. They were about 20% smaller. Then when you got into like the IQ 1001, thing was about 40% the size of the ZR1000, but it produced as much power. Now,
Right.
How is that possible? And it's all about the efficiency, because the older Class AB amplifiers, in fact, the ZR1000, we did a test back here, 43% efficient. So if it's got 1,000 watts coming in, you're going to have 430 watts of music and 570 watts of heat.
Right. Yeah. There was actually somebody asking about the ZR1000 in the Kicker Club 2-3 days ago, saying, "Hey, I'm going to use this in the car." And there was a few people already posting, it's a nice amp, but modern technology has evolved quite a bit. Your electrical system will thank you, obviously, if you upgrade to something newer that's a little bit more efficient. And there's a few other things too. We talked about power supply design, especially when the voltage starts dropping. That ZR1000 changes the signal that's out of it.
Yeah, well, is it regulated? Is it not regulated? Not going into too much detail, but a
we don't want to
regulated
dive down the rabbit
amplifier.
hole too bad,
Yeah,
but-
I mean, as the voltage drops, it's going to pull more current.
There's a
which
lot of
is
reasons
snowball effects.
You'd want to use a modern amp versus something that was 20 years plus old.
And you talk about 1,000 watts of power. If you produce 1,000 watts of music, you got 1,000 watts of heat. What's 1,000 watts? Well, it's basically 12 volts and 86 amps of current.
How many horsepower?
Yeah. Well, there's 743 watts in a horsepower.
Yeah, so you do the math.
But, you're wasting a lot of power from that electrical system in just heat, which brings us to the next thing. You got the right box, you got the right subwoofers, you got the right style of box, seal-ported, passive radiator. You got the right amplifier, the right power, but you got to power the amplifier. So,
right, electrical system in your car, and that is something everybody waits till the last minute, usually until they have problems. The amp's going in under voltage protection, the headlights are dimming, whatever it might be. So if you're going to run, I would say, it's going to be different vehicle to vehicle. Some OEMs factory alternators like right on the edge of what the car can do from the factory.
Limit, 38 amp alternator.
Yeah, if you put a 400 watt aftermarket subwoofer amplifier in there and you get headlight dimming already, so that's going to be an issue. But in general, if I had to make a ballpark, I'd say anything above about 800 watts, true 800 RMS, you're going to start having some electrical issues. You need to start thinking about what first?
Yep, alternators, batteries.
Alternator and battery are going to be your two key components. So high output alternator, there's a lot of great brands out there. You could do a larger battery if you had a space for a bigger battery box, but usually
You got to have room for the battery too.
For sure. We're usually talking about second battery. So if you're going to run second battery in the trunk or something like that.
And just remember, if you put a second battery in and you don't change the alternator, yes, you can play it for twice as long before the battery gets discharged enough that you need to charge it.
They work in
But it's
tandem,
going to take
right? They're a
twice
team.
as long with the same alternator to charge two batteries.
For sure. They work in tandem, they work as a team. So alternator and battery is what you need to be thinking of if you're going to be running 1,500, 2,000 watts. You need to start thinking about that stuff.
And wire.
For sure, and that's another thing. Look, I used to sell car audio for years before I started working with Kicker and before I even started installing car audio. Yeah, so, and that was something that was ridiculously common for people not to think about. When you come in, you're like, man, I want those subs to be banging, blah, 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 and you get to see all the cool stuff that's on display. Man, those subwoofers over there are gorgeous. I can afford 2 of those, and the amplifier, that huge amplifier, I'm going to get 2,000 watts, and together it totals, I don't know, $800. Yeah, I can cover that. And then they forget
selling gear.
Whatever it is. Well, what was it, 15 cents back when you were there?
No, it was a lot more expensive.
All right, but the point is they forget about the wiring kit and good quality copper wire, 4 gauge, 0 gauge.
They're not accessories. It's a component.
An installation component is required. And then if you cheap out on that wire and you go with copper clad aluminum wire, the wiring kit that's only, if it's too cheap to be true, it probably is. Copper's not cheap. So if that wiring kit is, that 4-gauge wiring kit is, $25, there's probably a reason that one's 25, and this one over here is 75, 100, whatever it might be.
Quick question, guys.
Sure.
SJC Audio guy is asking, what about free air subwoofer setups?
John, you've done a lot of free air stuff, huh?
Yeah, because it doesn't cost as much because it's free.
Hey, what did we say about those dad jokes? We said that before we started.
We did.
Hey, that is just the beginning.
I was going to be an electrician, but I couldn't
joke.
kilowatt. No,
I'm going to kick you off this show, I tell you.
Yeah, free air is great. It's called infinite baffle, and free air is a word that Kicker basically coined back in the mid '90s.
For sure.
And what it is you use the trunk as an enclosure. You mount the woofers on a baffle board mounted against the back seat or up against the rear deck. I mean, technically, one of my trivia questions when I'm on the road training is ask people, what's the best sounding enclosure technically? What is considered the most accurate? And
sealed is the answer you get.
And which is wrong. It technically is infinite baffle because there's no enclosure to change the response of the speaker.
Right.
It's relying solely on its mechanical suspension.
The audio fingerprint of that particular driver is in there is really all you're hearing.
Yeah.
There's no air spring suspension of the enclosure or anything.
I love infinite baffle. I love the sound, but they got two downfalls. Remember that good and bad?
Power handling.
Yep, power handling and output because of the power handling. So, and there's things you can do to improve that. Variable subsonic filters like we put on some of our subwoofer amplifiers by running a higher frequency, filter, higher frequency, high pass filter on a subwoofer amplifier. You can actually get the speaker to handle more power and have more output. You're going to sacrifice the bass. Because what's really weird is every time you cut the frequency in half, you quadruple the cone movement to get the same output. So it gets to the point
one thing I wanted to stress, guys, if you choose to use a free air design, that's great. If you're going to use one of our subwoofers in it, we only have one that's actually designed for free air stuff. So the other 99% of our drivers, the power handling that's spec'd on the box is going to be incorrect because that's spec'd for a sealed or a vented enclosure. If you're using it free air, we usually recommend cut it in half.
Yeah,
so if it's rated at 600 RMS, start around 300 RMS, see how that works out for you. But the power handling will be lower, so don't be surprised if you feed it what it's advertised on the box in a free air application.
And it starts barking because you're bottoming out the coil.
You get a little mad at it,
rip the tinsel leads out or tear the surround. That's how you know you have too much power. When you mechanically damage the speakers, you have too much power or the wrong enclosure or no subsonic filter.
Yes,
so
sir.
obviously, we got to come out, the vehicle. Besides all that, the other things in the vehicle that we didn't have to worry about, 15 years ago. The OEM features that they're putting in to basically mess with us. And they don't do it intentionally.
I know which ones you're talking about. Sure.
But you're talking like the electronic, the DSP that they put in, the pre-programmed equalization.
Sure.
Because what a lot of manufacturers will do is they'll go in and they'll pre-equalize the source unit. So it's like adjusting, an EQ, but the signal's fed through that all the time. You can't shut that off. The problem with that is you can go out and buy, listen to a set of speakers in a store. Obviously, you can't do this online, but you listen to a set of those, KS6930s, and God, those sound incredible. You buy them, you put them in your vehicle. They don't sound like that anymore.
Sound a lot like the factory speakers.
Yeah, or even worse in some cases because that factory DSP.
Right.
Something else that's becoming very common is noise cancellation. You need to know, does your vehicle have active noise canceling? Because you change anything in the system, you totally throw it off balance.
For those that are listening that don't know what active noise canceling is, or ANC, basically there's a microphone in the car that listens to the ambient.
Sometimes more, 4 or 5 microphones we've seen in some vehicles.
An audio input into a factory system of some kind that listens to the cabin noise in the car, road noise, things like that, and then plays an audio signal out of those door speakers that's 180 degrees out of phase to try and quiet down or mask that road noise or that drone or just the ambient noise in the vehicle. So when you put aftermarket audio in there, that microphone picks it up and kind of freaks out. It tries to output 180 degree out of phase of a very loud bass, subwoofer you got going in the back out of the door speakers, and usually get a nasty sound out of it. So how do you defeat that stuff? It's actually going to be different vehicle to vehicle. There is no answer that I can just give you how to defeat every single ANC
there is.
out there.
Buy an old vehicle without any computer control.
So most folks aren't going to do that. So if you do have a vehicle that has an ANC, ANC microphone or an ANC system that you're going to have to overcome. It may just be as simple as finding that ANC microphone and unplugging it, cutting the wire, whatever it might be. There might be a simple harness at the amplifier or whatever you can unplug. It's usually at a BCM
some of
or something like that.
some of the Fords I know you can go into the computer at the dealership and they can actually turn it on and off at the dealership.
So you can take it to the dealer and pay him
whatever they
far
want.
out the nose to plug in his programmer for 10 seconds and
bribe
turn it
him
off.
with lunch or something.
But you know what? That's probably the best way to do it because you're not cutting any wires, you're not modifying the vehicle.
And it can be put back to original very easily.
You could just plug in the programmer again, turn it back on like it never happened.
But there's a lot of that stuff that they're putting in the vehicles that you really have to address, and do some research. If any of you guys out there are really new to car audio, and this is like all an eye opener, like do some research. Look up your vehicle,
your particular vehicle, right.
and say what do you have to do. And there's a lot of good information, and there's some bad information.
So
online.
in addition to ANC, you might be getting like engine noise enhancement. So
which
there
is
are some vehicles
really
out there.
bizarre. So
yeah,
and especially the vehicles that have both. Well, what is engine enhancement?
So that's going to be vehicles that have usually a smaller motor than what they're usually maybe come with for fuel efficiency, and they don't really sound as mean as they should, so they make artificial engine noise and then pipe that through the audio speakers. Fake exhaust, essentially, that plays through that audio system. So when you put in aftermarket audio, aftermarket amplifier, you get some bad times. So that's going to be something you're going to have to usually take to the dealer and have them turn off, or you can use an integration module that we'll talk a little bit about later.
And there's a couple articles. If you go to our Tech Paper site, there's one on active noise canceling and one on engine noise enhancement. Some are mechanical boxes. Another example, like you mentioned my Mustang earlier, it had a type of engine noise enhancement. It wasn't active, but it was physical. There is actually a tube that went out to the air intake that connects it to the firewall to bring more engine noise.
Cover it up with some tape or something?
Exactly. We'd pull it out, and they actually make a kit. When I put the supercharger on it, they make a kit that you actually plug up the hole in the firewall.
Put a cork in it.
Yeah, basically, that's what you're doing. But there's a lot of those things that you need to understand that some vehicles you're going to have to do a little bit more and pay a little bit more. You may have to get an interface.
It's not easy anymore.
Yeah, such as a Pack Amp Pro.
Aaron?
Yeah, thank you, Ken. The Shade Tree Living is asking a perfectly timed question. He wants to know about bass roll-off. He's already got a Kicker amplifier, and he's got some bass roll-off in his 2014 CR-V.
For
You've
sure.
got the answer.
Yep, so for sure. Bass roll-off is yet another thing that we've been talking about. All these factory audio systems that you're going to try and integrate with. So bass roll-off is as you turn the volume knob up on that factory head unit, the bass doesn't really get any louder. The mid-range and that treble frequencies, they continue to increase, but the bass generally stays level. It rolls off in relation to the mid-range and bass.
Yeah, there's a bunch of different features. And like I said, we got tech articles on all
and
this.
The question that people are asking, well, how do I fix that? And that's
well,
really what the question was.
How do you fix that? Kent, why don't you point to that amplifier right there? That's how you fix that.
So for those that, I don't know, is this on camera? Yeah, it's pretty close to on camera. This is the Key 501. It will definitely help with that. If you're, 500 RMS is usually enough for us old folks here at the table. It's probably more or less, actually I got 1200 watts on mine, what am I talking about? But 500 watts is enough for a single 10, 12, then that'll take care of you. The key lock will absolutely help with that stuff too. So we do have a little demo board, can kind of showcase some of this stuff for you a little bit later, but the Key 501 or the Key LOC will certainly help with that. There are some other options out there for vehicle integration, for signal integration, and we'll go through those a little bit later.
Well, actually, I think may be a good time right now if you're ready, because we talked about active equalization, we talked about bass roll-off. They're really important features that you have to know how to do it, and most people may have never seen it, see what it looks like. So Ken's put together this great little board here. Well,
sure, we're
going to actually measure, show you the signal coming out of a radio, show it to you coming out of an amplifier, and then we can show you what the key lock and the Key 501 will do to that signal to put you back to where you want to get started.
Give us half a second here. We've only got one cable to service the whole world.
Sorry guys, I'm jumping
here.
around.
No, he's fine.
But I think it's just a great time, since we already talked about these features. We should at least show you, actually what we're dealing with and, how it can be fixed. Now remember, especially when it comes to the key lock, this is not an expensive piece of equipment. It's $150. But if you got a $500 budget and you spend $300 on a woofer, you spend $150 on an amp and $50 on a power kit, that doesn't leave any money to really correct the signal to get you the right bass. So you really need to plan and budget. And like I said, all this stuff is even before you go to the store. You want to research this, and a lot of this is assuming you're going to do it yourself. Because if you go to a shop and you pay someone, hopefully they know what they're doing. Which there's a lot of really good guys out there.
Yeah, there is. But to showcase what we have going on here, guys, this rig we put together.
You put together.
Well, I put it together. It's really for us to travel with. Again, COVID aside, we travel the country with it. I can take it into a dealer and I can show him real world what the key lock is capable of doing, what the Key 501 is capable of doing. So what we have here is a factory head unit. It's out of it's a Corolla, 2019 Corolla. I might be off a year, 2018-19 Toyota Corolla. The output of that runs to a factory amplifier that we have here. Under here is just a power supply, 12-volt power supply to power everything. So from the output of the head unit...
Tell them why you chose that particular radio. Just a couple reasons.
Well, it's modern, but the main reason I chose this exact one is because it has a USB in the front panel. It's because we travel and the CD player dies or it gets smashed. Mechanical things don't like being transported through the airlines all that well, but yeah. But this is real world type stuff, so it's easy for me to find, and it works.
And it's got equalization built in.
Yeah, it's got some factory EQ, which almost every head unit in the past, every factory head unit in the
probably
past,
since 2010,
hot minute, it's
got some type of equalization.
So output of this factory head unit is going to run to this factory amplifier. The output of the factory amplifier is where you would tap in for your signal for your aftermarket amplifiers, and that's where we have the key lock tapped in. So it goes head unit, amplifier, key lock, and that's what I have here with these little barrier strips. It's just little test points that I can touch an RTA to and be able to see output of the Toyota head unit, output of the factory amplifier, and then output of the key lock. So after the key lock's done its magic, what does the RTA look like? And that's what I'm going to show you guys right now. So
and in case you guys don't know, RTA is a real-time analyzer.
I'm sure Kip has probably covered that in some other weeks, but in case
I hope
he
so,
hasn't.
but if you guys are new to the show, you know, the RTA is a testing tool. You know, we actually use online apps with a nice little rig that we've developed.
Right.
But like I say, this is just to show you what the RTA is going to show you is we're going to send a known signal in, which is something called pink noise, and it's not because you look at it on the scope and it turns pink. It's the frequency response, but it's equal amounts of all frequencies.
Exactly. So the RTA gives you a visual picture of what that music looks like or what that audio signal looks like. So you can see how much bass is there in relation to how much mid-range is there, et cetera, et cetera. Ernie, are we on the screen yet? With the RTA? All right. So you guys can see the bars there. That's actually... This should be probably just the microphone that we have here. Let me touch. This should be the output.
If you guys
of
notice
our
down
head
at
unit.
63 hertz, there was that little bit of a spike there. That's a little bit of feedback from 60 hertz in the home AC unit, the charger that's actually powering up the
plugged into it,
iPad.
but it's nothing to worry about right now. We got signal going in.
As long as you get signal above that level, everything's accurate.
We're good. So right now what you're looking at is the EQ curve out of that factory head unit. And you can see if I can get to the buttons.
Well, it looks like from about 50 hertz to 300 hertz, there's about 12 dB difference.
Yeah, there's a good chunk there. So if I turn volume down, obviously you can see things decrease. If I turn volume up, things increase. So right now we're looking at the signal output of that factory head unit. So for those that have never seen an RTA before, how you read it, all the bars on the left-hand side would be your bass frequencies, the ones in the middle would be mid-range, and all the bars on the right side would be your treble frequencies, your high-range frequencies that come out of those tweeters, etc. So this is a relationship of how loud each band of frequencies is to the others next to it. So let's move over to the factory amplifier. So that signal went into the factory amplifier.
And what's the amplitude to it?
So
that looks very much different.
It is definitely different, still not flat. So, okay, it's got its own little personal color to it. And why would they do that? Because they got those 25-cent factory speakers in there and they wanted to make them sound as good as they can. And
especially with the bass roll-off.
Yeah, sure. If you want to put your aftermarket speakers in there, you want it to start with a flat frequency response, and you can do your own thing from there. Set your own EQ on the head unit, do whatever you want. So now this is the output of that factory amplifier, but now I've ran the key locks through its setup process.
That looks a whole lot better.
It sure does. So again, that is now an even, so the amount of bass in the music is going to be equal to the amount of mid-range, to the amount of high frequencies in there. But the key lock has another cool feature. It'll let you toggle before and after. So if I were to put this in a car, I could then play music through that audio system and then toggle the key lock on and off so I can hear the differences that the DSP in the key lock made. And that's what I'm going to show you guys on the RTA. Of course, you wouldn't be able to hear it if I were to play music. So this is the DSP off. And I'll hit the button again, DSP on.
That does a pretty good job of cleaning up that signal.
Yeah, it does. Huge difference in the amount of, in the frequency, what am I thinking of? The frequency bands that it can
and if you notice the bass roll-off that we have up here, it compensated for that as well.
Sure, so that's input and output. There you go. In addition to the EQ curves that we're talking about here, I think we're good. Thanks, Ernie.
Hopefully that answered some questions.
For sure. And the key lock's a very powerful piece. So in addition to doing all that cool EQ corrections, it can also correct for factory time correction, all pass filters. So a lot of things that you didn't even know were there in that factory audio system, it can fix all that. If you've got a factory time correction in that, that front driver's side speaker, it'll take care of that for you, no problem. All pass filter on the passenger side, it'll take care of it. If I'm correct me wrong, I believe it's up to 3 all pass filters.
Yes, 3 independent.
3 independent all pass filters it's able to correct for you, and I hesitate to say it, but it's one of the only pieces in the world.
We're not going to go into all pass filters on this. We don't
yeah, that's a whole different one. But that's one of the only pieces in the world that can do that kind of stuff, and it definitely does it. It's the only piece that can do it with one button setup. I just did the setup before we started here. It took I don't know, not even 10 minutes. So it's a very quick, easy way. Dummy proof. Even I can do it, right? So even a junior installer that doesn't really isn't comfortable with all pass filters.
Follow the instructions.
Follow the instructions closely. Use the test tones that are available on KICKER.com. And it takes no time at all.
Well, not to be a commercial for the key lock, but if you're
well, it's tough, man. It's a cool piece.
Any factory radio, if you're leaving the factory radio, you need a key lock. Period. I mean, because it's going to take your system back to the starting point where you can then adjust it to your liking there, not what the car makers decided you should listen to.
Question: Zakosa, I hope I said that correctly. I apologize if I did not. Zakosa says, does any of this equipment help remove distortion or static from audio files?
So, no, it does not. The old saying is every bit true as it always been is garbage in, garbage out. So if you start with poor quality MP3s, whether it's compressed music, whether it's music that's clipped and it's distorted before it even gets into the head unit, honestly.
Yeah, we can do a whole thing on just recording quality of music. I mean, that's why we tell you, if you've got something sounds good to your ears, use that for a demo, something you're familiar with that sounds good.
Don't use FM radio. Don't use stuff like that.
How about AM radio?
No, not so much.
Does anybody ever listen to AM radio?
Sports, I think, and that's about maybe, I don't know, man. Not too much.
Should be illegal.
But yeah, high quality music is going to be paramount when you have a high quality audio system. So make sure you're putting in high quality audio, whether it's a CD, lossless media of some kind, FLAC files, whatever you can play.
It's something else you're talking about systems to consider is how you're going to put the system in. I've kind of, over the years, kind of narrowed it down. There's 3 main ways.
I'd use my hands. I don't know about you.
You can install equipment, obviously, manual labor, but there's 3 different styles of installation that I think, you need to consider what you're going to do because it's going to make a difference.
High quality, cheap, fast.
Yeah. So the triangle. But no, I'm actually talking about, just replace the factory sizes, stock stuff, and you're not really changing the look of anything, but you're making it sound a little bit better.
Drop in.
Yeah, so what we call drop in or just, OEM replacement. Or do you want to go, the other direction where you want a really high-end system, you're going to add speakers in different locations, but you want them invisible. You don't want anything seen, but you have an audiophile system, kind of stealth mode. And believe it or not, that's actually can be the most expensive, and it's the hardest to do, definitely, to camouflage all the gear.
For sure.
And of course, that just leaves one area, and that's how many bells and whistles and lights, and what's the limit there? And the limit is your imagination and your budget. So
another question to jump in here, guys. Daniel's asking a really good question. Is it worth installing a key LOC before a amplifier that has DSP built in? So cleaning up the signal before DSP.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%.
You're making that DSP so it can do its job much better.
Right.
So, yes.
Essentially, yep.
Oh, that was easy.
That was easy.
So, yes is the one-word answer.
So, John, you mentioned, your budget, things like that. Let's say I want all that cool stuff, but I don't have the budget for all that cool stuff. Let's say...
sorry, guys. 10 minutes on the giveaways. 10 more minutes.
Got to have giveaways.
KICKER.com / Weekly.
Yeah, we're having too much fun.
Yeah, if you haven't signed up for the giveaway, you got 10 minutes left. KICKER.com / like UnMasked, Weekly, all one word. So if you don't have the budget to buy that dream system right now, Could you go about this in stages?
Absolutely.
And where do you start? What do you recommend?
That's actually kind of how I started doing audio myself.
I think most of us did, right?
You know, start with, what is the worst sounding? Is it the speakers? Is it the radio? Years and years ago, I remember, especially not picking on a car maker, but the Hondas. A guy comes in with a Honda, hated the system. We could put a new set of speakers in, and it just sounded incredible. I mean, they had great electronics.
That was years
with the
ago.
speakers.
Honda,
but
please
now,
don't sue us.
Yeah, but everyone's gotten better, and you don't have to do everything. Bang for the buck is kind of what we like to talk about. What's going to give you the bang for the buck, but more importantly, what is more important to you? Up front. Do I want more bass, which is usually what people want. That's why we're the company that we are.
When they come to us, that's the most common
But
one.
yeah, if you want the most output, bang for the buck, obviously adding bass. But what if your system already, you've got enough bass, you just need to add a set of tweeters to it. So.
All right.
But you can start, and
Depends on what your wants and needs are. And then my advice would be patient. I definitely was not when I first started, and
Well,
sometimes you pay for that. So
while we're talking about this, one of the biggest things is to plan ahead. So in your mind you're going to add more to it. So don't just
run
buy
the heavier gauge power wire.
Exactly.
Now.
Don't just buy that 8-gauge power kit and expect to put a 1,000-watt or your 1,500-watt amplifier on.
When I was a salesman, I did that all the time because you sell that 1,000-watt amplifier with those two 12-inch subwoofers,
and they have only this much budget left.
Yeah, you know you're not going to be able to do a 4-channel amplifier and speakers with that budget that they have. Go ahead and run the 4 or 0 gauge now because when they come back 3 months from now,
you're going to pay the labor.
Yeah, you're going to have to unrun that 8-gauge or 4-gauge wire that they had, so I can upgrade to the 4 or 0 gauge now.
So definitely, that's the merits of planning your system ahead of time.
For sure.
Another question for you guys, real quick. JD Skater is asking. He's got a 2020 WRX Subaru with the factory installed Kicker upgrade audio system. And of course, that system is tuned for the average
Specifically
listener.
tuned for that.
And he would like it to be a bit tighter sub bass. It's a little muddy. He's describing a little bit muddy. And he's wondering if the key lock would fix that, but I don't think that's the right direction to go.
No, that's not going to fix it. Probably adding another subwoofer with more power in a sealed enclosure.
Right,
and
I'd recommend probably just pulling the factory sub all together and then running aftermarket.
And it depends. I've done vehicles where I've run the factory sub with an additional. Sometimes that factory sub we talked to, they don't have a lot of deep bass.
It's easy to unplug
but they
and
got some good
disconnect,
mid bass, so you might be able to use the mid bass from the factory subwoofer.
Yeah, it's easy to unplug and disconnect, so you can certainly run it and try it, see how it sounds with it on, and then if it's like boo, then you need to go ahead and unplug it, and you'll be rocking and rolling. So I'd probably just go ahead and run aftermarket with that.
We got a shout to Big Z. Big Z said, I've got a key lock, a key 204, and a key 500.
Nice.
It's his very first install ever, and he said it was freaking killer.
Good. Glad to hear it.
Thank
Glad
you.
to hear it.
Thank you, Big Z.
So we talk about which products you should
Look
buy
at all
first.
three of those up here, right?
Upgrading in stages, things like that we talked about. Let's just do the most basic one. When you're shopping for a subwoofer system, what do you recommend looking at first? Do I look at subwoofers first? Do I buy an amplifier first? Do I buy the amp and then find subwoofers that go with it? Vice versa? John?
It's all kind of really it's all important.
Of course it's important.
So what I generally suggest is if you're trying to say, you start with the subwoofer, but you start with what type of music you listen to. What type of enclosure do I need? And then you go listen to it. In fact, you can listen to, go to your local, authorized retailer, and they can play a sealed enclosure and a ported enclosure side by side.
If they're a good retailer, they'll have that demo for you.
Don't just listen to the output difference, but listen to the quality of the music. Now, the sealed enclosure is always going to be tighter than that vented enclosure, especially as the vented enclosures get larger. They get a lot sloppier, but they get a lot more output.
So you were talking subwoofers first.
Yep.
So I also say subwoofers first, but my reasoning is different, and it's actually just much more logical. So again, we talked about planning out your system.
Never happened.
Talk about planning out your system. What do you want out of it, et cetera, et cetera. So maybe I can't fit 412, so I don't need that 2,000 watt amplifier. There are amplifiers at every power level to power whatever subwoofers that you end up with. So don't worry about the amplifier right now. Go ahead and get the subwoofers that you like the sound of, fit your install, number 2. So we'll fit, sound great, and then how much power do I need? Do I need 500 watts, 1,500 watts? And then we can start looking at amplifiers from there. KICKER has several lines of amplifiers of all different power levels, and even if you didn't go with KICKER. My point is there's tons of amplifiers out there. You'll be able to find an amplifier to power whatever drivers you start with.
And you guys have seen our power tests on amplifiers, how accurate they can be. But once again, you go back to the planning stage. You can only afford one 10-inch woofer and one amplifier, one power kit, but you're going to add on to it. why not get the right amplifier up front that you can just add another subwoofer without having to change the amplifier?
Sure. So let's say the amplifier does 1,000 watts at 1 ohm, 500 watts at 2 ohm. You get one subwoofer, because that's all you can afford right now. You get one subwoofer at 2 ohm right now. When you can afford the second subwoofer later, you wire them in parallel for that 1 ohm load, double the cone area, double the power, much more output, but you did it in stages because you couldn't afford them all at once. That's another idea. So
but just
keep that in mind.
ahead.
Yeah, plan ahead. That is absolutely what we've been talking about for the last hour.
Here's another scenario, guys, that's really common.
Okay.
Is so you get a customer that wants a specific subwoofer, like L7X.
Okay.
Nobody wants those.
They're not available yet, so don't ask, please. But they don't have enough money left over for a custom enclosure. Can they just slap together a box and make it bang?
Especially with that subwoofer, right? Yeah.
Let's talk about enclosure.
So absolutely not, especially when it comes to the L7X. A preloaded enclosure is kind of a one-size-fits-all, and just whatever driver you throw in there, you're going to hope that it fits well with.
Like an all-season tire.
Yeah.
Kind of does everything okay.
Yeah, I mean, you'll make bass, sure. But is it a performance tire? No. Is it going to let that subwoofer really shine and do what it's meant to do? No, it's not. And then, of course, build quality is another one. That sealed enclosure, even a ported enclosure that was $40, $60, generally they're not really constructed all that well. Some are better than others. Not trying to knock on all.
board or chip
Yeah, some
board.
of them are 1/2 inch or 5/8, and they're not sealed up all that well. I've been doing this a while. I've come across so many of those prefab boxes that are literally falling apart. The panels are coming apart at the seams. And then they actually think the subwoofer's blown because they're hearing the box itself rattle.
Yes.
I had that at Ocean City Jeep Week last year, guys. A guy pulled up thinking this subwoofer was blown. I was like, let's go take a look. Let's see what you got.
The sides flapping in the breeze.
That's exactly what it was. This preloaded, his prefab enclosure was just blown apart. So.
Well, talking about prefab enclosures, all of our enclosures are specifically matched to the woofers.
Yeah.
So the same guys designing the woofers are designing the enclosures.
So preloaded enclosures by KICKER is actually a different discussion. So like he said.
Technically that it is prefab, but it's not,
you don't have to build the enclosure, but that enclosure was built for that subwoofer.
So you're not going to get any better. In fact, on one of the KICKER Club articles someone posted about a year ago, that they had an L7 woofer in the 12-inch in the vented enclosure, and they were talking about
saving
up money to get this
prefab. I saw that thread.
And everyone's like, no! But yeah, the enclosures sound great. They're designed to work. And,
for sure.
The enclosure can affect the performance of the driver and can affect the longevity of the driver too.
All right, John, so we've decided more or less.
Well, you decided what gear you want, what direction
more or less. Yeah, more or less. So let's talk
about
where
are you going to go get it?
Where are you going to buy it, right? So what are the pros and cons of each? Most people right now are like, I go to Amazon or I go to wherever's cheapest on the website, on the web. So what's the downfalls of doing that?
Well,
and what are the advantages?
Obviously, advantage would be price if you search it out, but one of the disadvantages, they may not be an authorized dealer, and if they're not an authorized dealer, what can happen there?
So you generally don't have warranty on that, and sometimes we have seen some counterfeits. I mean, that's what they are. They're actual counterfeit products that look an awful lot like a KICKER comp or whatever, and they are not made by KICKER whatsoever.
Or it's the right equipment, but maybe it's used. I mean,
we actually have a collection of counterfeit stuff here, and some of it is.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, pretty darn amazing. At first, even second glance, you wouldn't catch it. So first and foremost, make sure you're buying from an authorized dealer. If you do buy it off the internet, make sure you're buying it from a KICKER authorized dealer. Do you know where you can find a list of that?
On the website.
KICKER.com. So KICKER.com, you click on the dealer tab. It'll open up all the brick and mortar dealers, but then there's a tab right at the top. You switch over to internet dealers. So if you click on the internet tab, it'll give you all of our authorized internet dealers. And there's a lot of great ones out there. So the rule of thumb is if you don't go through all that, is if it's too good to be true, that price is cheaper than everybody else. That one website is 10-15% cheaper than everybody else, and be suspicious.
And it's a scam.
And then the easy one, you don't get any warranty. So if you have an issue, I'm sorry, it could have been used for all we know. It didn't come from a dealer that we've authorized.
Right, and something else I was a retailer. I had a store for a while, and something that we always prided ourselves on, me and my employees, was service. That's one thing you cannot buy on the internet, guys, is service. And
service and a handshake, right?
Yep, and you can't audition it. Yeah. So generally,
that's another one.
You buy it from an authorized retail, and you have a question or have an issue, they're going to help you. They want to retain you. They're going to help you out. And
so when you start talking KICKER gear, generally we make sure that most of our online dealers are going to be within, if not the exact same price, awfully darn close to our brick and mortar stores. So make sure you guys check out your local dealer. Roll down to your local KICKER dealer. Again, you can find them
Kicker.com.
The brick and mortar dealers will be there. Look up whatever your authorized Kicker dealers are. You can go listen to the product before you buy it. And then most of the time their price will be the same as a popular website like Crutchfield would be. And if it's not, ask them. Ask the owner of the store or whoever is in charge there, hey guys, Crutchfield's got it 5% cheaper or whatever, can I get it $10? Can you match that price? Almost all of them will take care of you like that.
We can't promise that, but...
I can't promise that, of course. I'm not speaking for every single dealer in the country. What I am saying is check out your local dealer, make sure you patron that local business. A lot of times they're going to be the exact same price.
And you might meet some friends along the way, and especially if you're really getting into audio, you can learn a lot.
They may have some deals going where we're offering free installation when you buy it. Can't buy that online, right? So it may work out for the better. And you'll, again, make some friends, like you said, that are into the same hobbies that you are, which I definitely did over the years.
How about pawn shops or your friends?
Pawn shops? Yeah, those are going to be tough generally. So I don't think we have a single authorized pawn shop as our dealer.
If you see an amplifier, sometimes you get lucky and it's a good deal, and sometimes it's not.
I've heard some great stuff. People, I found such and such there, $40. They didn't know what they had.
Yep, that happens.
It does, but it's few and far between. Most of my experiences with it is I probably wouldn't recommend it.
Sorry, guys. I want to say Nick C. He said none of his local dealers have Kicker. In that instance, definitely go to the Kicker.com website and find an authorized retail partner who's online, because we have some excellent online retail partners, and they will take good care of you.
Is it about that time?
It is. Yeah.
Ted's back here.
My gosh, we've been.
Oh, I think he was pointing at that camera. I thought he was doing.
The contest is done.
Yeah, so I think it was like time.
Contest is closed. We'll announce the winners here just shortly. They're probably going to stir them up, but the contest is just closed, so hopefully you were able to sign up for that. I think we got maybe 10 more minutes until.
Yeah, just a few more minutes.
Cool. What else did we hit on? So we did talk about a shop. Shops do installation. We talked about maybe they offer some sort of promo, but when we're talking install, all this stuff's got to be installed. So what are some questions you got to ask yourself when it comes to that topic?
Obviously, do you have the knowledge to install it?
Yeah, the tools to install it.
The tools are another big thing, and that's why
the time to install it.
And the ability.
And what happens when something goes south? For most of you guys, you're probably working on your daily driver. So you got the daily driver torn apart. Something went wrong. Let's say it could be electrical, and you actually ended up frying a part of the BCM, and the car won't start anymore. But let's say let's say the install is going great, but it just took a lot longer than you thought it would, and the car is all torn apart. What are you going to do? So these are some questions you got to think about. If it's a daily
Express.
Yeah, this is shoe leather. This means you're walking to work.
Yep.
Huh? Okay. So think about that for sure.
And that's the thing. If you don't know what you're doing, it's going to take a lot. Like even as professional installer, the second vehicle you do goes at least twice as fast because you know the tools, you know everything.
Every bolt and nut that's on there, where all the dash unclips, etc. So, but first time usually takes longer.
Something we actually forgot to talk about, or actually I probably skipped. When you're buying equipment, when you're researching, you need to know what fits in your vehicle. If you're replacing stock speakers, you need to know what size. So
mounting depth.
Yep, mounting depth. I mean, the size. Do I need any special adapters? And that's something else to think about. If you're replacing an entire system in a car, if you have the ability and are replacing the head unit, is there a kit made to make it look nice? The speakers. Do I have to make adapters to make these fit because they're funky? Back when Toyota was doing the build outs, and that's why we started including them with our speakers. We include the adapters. You don't have to buy them extra. So there's a lot of that. There's so much stuff you really got to think about even before you start buying gear and putting it in.
And if we've made the key amplifiers very, very easy to set up, but especially when you get into high-end DSP type stuff, obviously if you're going to use the IQ amplifiers or you're going to be bi-amping speakers, do you know how to tune all that stuff? And I'm not doubting anybody's abilities. I'm just saying, ask yourself, do you know how to tune that stuff? Do you have the time to tune that stuff, or are you willing to let a pro tackle it for you?
What happens if you tune it wrong?
You'll probably end up with a worse sounding system than, or maybe some damaged components.
Yeah, or a whole bunch of broken stuff.
Yeah, so it's pretty easy to fry a tweeter by, just having a wrong crossover point, and that would be quick too. 10 seconds of playing with an incorrect crossover point because you set the crossover on the wrong channel. You didn't really realize that's how you
swap the mid and the tweeter backwards. You think it doesn't matter.
Speaking from experience, that sounded like it was from experience.
Been there, done
that.
Right? I actually have.
So we talked very little about integration. So we do have the key products for it. Let's say your vehicle isn't, dynamic bass roll-off. So bass roll-off that actually changes with volume setting, or there are other options out there. So true interface pieces that you can get from PAC. I did see some some guys on there in the industry.
Yeah, the Amp Pro, I mean, it's a
Yeah,
great.
the Pack Amp Pro is awesome.
I've got those in all my vehicles, with the exception of the Mustang.
Yeah, if you're going to use
my Dodges.
the Metra's got the AX DSP, the Maestro
Nav
RR.
TV,
yeah.
Maestro. There's
Nav
a lot of
TV
good
is
companies
yeah,
out there.
So go see if there's an actual an interface that'll give you, connects usually on CAN bus, and it'll give you flat audio out with no bass roll off. You don't have to usually worry about ANC, all those cool things. So check those guys out. They make really great stuff. But on a more universal thing, the key lock works for a lot of vehicles. And for those that don't need it, it could be the key LOC, excuse me, the key lock. I was talking about KISS lock.
Yeah, we got too many products.
Yeah, so key lock, the KISS lock, which would be our great sounding LOC, or even the Kissel. It's just RCA to speaker.
There was
level
one up here a
adapter.
minute ago, wasn't there?
It may have
your
been floating around
RTA
here.
test rig?
Yeah, it's on the floor now, I think.
But yeah, talking about the interfaces, and once again, things to know ahead of time. If you don't have the ability to sort this out yourself, I mean, a lot of you guys can, determine signal, and by doing this, and one of the things that, the interfaces are so important for, like with my two Dodges that I have, one's got a factory Alpine system, the other has the factory Beat system. So you cannot take that factory amplifier out. A lot of times say, oh, just take the factory amp out, replace it with another one. Well, the fact is the piece on the dash is 2-channel and it's analog.
Right.
And it is a fixed volume. So
I have that in my Ford Focus, and mine's a 2013. So
well, that's got a
it's
13
fixed,
charger
yeah,
too.
fixed volume to the amplifier.
2-channel output.
You cannot
no
remove
control.
that amplifier and still have volume control, either without using one of the interfaces that we mentioned. Hopefully it works for your particular vehicle. It's available for your particular vehicle. If not, key lock. Key lock after the amplifier. Very, very universal piece. I'm not trying to make this into a commercial either, but guys, man, that thing is awesome. It really is.
Underrated.
It does a great job.
Now, the other cool thing about that is the 501, the key amplifier, it's got basically that built into it as well.
Yep.
But it just works on basically the bass section.
Right, so the Key 501, like John said, it does a lot of the same thing the key lock does, but only for bass. So if you just want subwoofer and you have that bass roll off in your car, you can run through a very similar setup, and it'll use DSP to fix that bass roll off and give you that 500 plus watts. Yeah, I think it actually does 600 plus watts, all of our samples. This little guy is a monster. And it's a small guy. You can tuck that under a seat, even if you had power seats, probably, no problem.
In about 5 minutes, I'm going to announce the winners. But Ernie, I don't know how to find out who the winners are.
Well, while you're figuring that out, here again, you got to, we talked about getting the right equipment, installing it right, the right power wire, the right interfaces. You still have to run all those cables. You have to understand where you can run cables, and
what wires you can tap into. How do you test those wires? So that's actually going to be very paramount. That I really should have said probably further up in the first 10 minutes of doing this.
I should have.
Is test those OE wires. If you know that you're going to be using that factory head unit or that factory amplifier, you can build this little simple RTA using the walkthrough that we have on kicker.com under the
white paper tech
site. Yeah, the tech docs, I think is what it's called. Anyway, there's a how to build an RTA. The parts are all together, you're $50 in or whatever you're in, very cheap. And you can do the RTA on the iPad exactly like we did here during the show.
Or your phone or laptop.
Yep, you can use your phone or
anything
laptop
with a microphone
also.
Input.
So what you need to do is then stab into those factory wires and then look for the signal there. So you can see, do I have full range audio? Is it flat? Maybe you got lucky and you have flat audio out of that factory head unit or out of that factory amplifier, and all this discussion is for naught. You don't need the key lock, you don't need those interfaces.
It's more money for subwoofers.
But maybe you do. And then above all, you've tapped into the correct wires that actually have audio there, and they're not airbag wires or something crazy like that, or CAN bus
airbag wires. I still haven't done that, so maybe I should have said that.
Yeah, knock on fake wood.
Never set off. Found gas tanks before.
Okay. But so yeah, make sure you test first and foremost. I would say before you start buying gear, you're worrying about if you need interfaces. Either do some research online with some other folks that own the exact same car, exact same trim and audio trim that you have, so same head unit.
That makes a difference. What model vehicle you have.
So whether it's with or without the Bose system, but the Bose system may come in a couple of different flavors also, so make sure it's the exact same trim level and see what maybe they've already done this footwork for you. So maybe you need the interface, maybe you don't. Do the research up front.
And if you do, definitely get it.
Matter of fact, we're doing an install for an employee here not too long. We're going to film some video, and that's the first thing is, hey, let me get your car. It's a Hyundai, which I really wasn't too worried about Hyundais a little bit. So pulled it in, but I wanted to check with an RTA first before I got in there, diving in, and then found out the hard way that it's got some wild EQ curve on it. It's got time correction, whatever it might be. So first and foremost.
And that's kind of the way
test.
I found out I needed it was with my Dodge Journey with the UConnect system. That same thing, we talked about the radio. It's 2-channel fixed output, but in the amplifier, the signal's crossed over in the amplifier, and the amplifier does all the volume, equalization, balance, and fader. So, and you don't know that till you actually get in there and start probing the wires and find out.
Yep,
the worst thing you do is start cutting a lot of wires and not know what you're cutting and
For sure.
trip an airbag or mess up a computer.
Sure. Well, Aaron, where are we at?
Okay, so
These folks want their free goods.
but
Listen to
actually,
these two guys ramble on long enough.
our good friend Hi-Fi Vega, he wants to know each of our favorite Kip-isms. So do you have a favorite Kip-ism? I mean, you know, there's so many to choose from.
So, probably full tilt boogie.
I'm still liking Schmedium.
Medium's a good choice.
I'm a schmarge.
I like driving in the car behind him when we're doing conventions and such, because he drives like a freaking madman, just like he does a show. He drives like a madman. So I want to be behind him,
Kip's
watching
full
him
noise
drive.
all the
Separate
time.
cars.
Yes.
Well, you're not going to see him for long.
No.
You see taillights
I've seen him
disappearing
pop
into
curbs and yeah, but anyway.
Full
okay, so
tilt boogie.
we're gonna call out the winners, and third place.
Third place, what are we up for? What do we win? An EB? Pair of EB200?
EB200.
Bluetooth?
Koozies, T-shirt,
Yep.
Koozie
A Kicker
t-shirt.
Unmasked t-shirt and a koozie. Third place.
and Ken's
Third
autograph.
place.
Arthur R. from Georgia.
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 Arthur,
Congratulations,
you're number 3.
Arthur.
Yep. So make sure you email. In fact, they're
Tell
gonna-
them what they need there,
Okay,
Aaron.
so Arthur R., please email Mr. Bill Frog. Or actually, you're going to get an email from Bill Frog. Excuse me.
He'll take care of you.
Yeah, he's going to send
And
you an
respond to
email.
him, then.
Yeah, respond to him. Check your spam filter. And we're going to need your full name, of course, your address, no P.O. box, no P.O. box. And we're not going to spam you, of course. And
Checking
your
account.
size. And what size is it, guys?
Extra medium.
Okay. Extra medium. So winner number 2. Who is winner number 2?
Winner number 2. Peter M.
like-
from New York.
Oh, phone number. Phone number for shipping. Thank you,
Skipped over
Tim.
that, yeah. So Peter, congrats. You're winner
M.
number 2. What did Peter win?
Peter, from
New York.
what does Peter win?
The Tabor headphones?
He gets the Tabor, right? He gets
Nice.
the Tabor headphones. He gets a koozie and, of course, an Unmasked t-shirt.
That's right.
And once again, we need your shirt size. We
Shirt
need your
size.
phone number. Thank
Phone
you, Tim.
number.
We need your mailing address, which is not a P.O. box.
Not a P.O. box. We can't ship to that.
And you have to check your emails. Check your emails.
All right, for grand prize. What's grand
Grand
prize,
prize?
Aaron? What do they win?
That doesn't work very well, does it? Grand prize is... Dun, 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 dun.
Levi C.
from Tennessee. Hey, that
I
kinda
love it.
rhymes.
Yeah, it rolls right off the tongue, doesn't it?
Levi C. Check your email.
Congrats, Levi. So you just won? Aaron?
Yeah.
What do you win?
Kush NCs?
Aaron, what do you win?
NCs, Yes.
Aaron, first
Kush-
place. The
Kush
Kush NC,
NC.
the noise canceling over-the-ear headphones. Yeah, see, he couldn't hear me.
Use
He got
those
on.
for him.
That's right. So the ANC headphones, along with the Unmasked Live T-shirt and a koozie.
Respond to your email, please,
All
please,
three
please.
guys will get an email from Bill Frog here shortly. And make sure you respond within 7 days. If you don't respond within 7 days, you do forfait. It doesn't happen often, but
Then the
it
price
has
goes to
happened.
me, doesn't it?
No, it doesn't either. goes to
Dang
me.
it.
I think 25 hertz to life gets everything that doesn't get cleaned. Is that right? Is that true?
I don't know. He says it's rigged. So
Yeah,
maybe
he said it's
rigged in his
rigged.
favor.
So it's rigged.
It's rigged because he doesn't win every single time.
I've heard that they've both won. Both those guys. So.
But not every single
Yeah.
time.
So guys, any closing thoughts?
Plan your system.
Yeah, test.
Plan your attack. Don't
Test
just.
and plan before you spend a dime.
You're going to be a lot happier. You're going to not waste as much money as if you just buy a whole bunch of
Learn
mismatched
from me because
gear.
I've blown plenty of money for no reason over the years, for
And
sure.
a good resource for planning your system is Kicker. Contact our
Support at
guys and
kicker.com.
girls. Support at kicker.com.
Call our tech support and they'll help you guys. You know, what kind of car you want, what do you want, and they'll help you out.
800-256-0808. So
That number again.
800-256-0808.
Well
That's
done.
a toll-free number for those of you that don't have cell phones that have unlimited long distance anyway.
Yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with us tonight. We trust that you'll see Kip here next week. Hopefully he's feeling much better.
It gets well soon.
We got some time. We can answer some questions.
Oh,
Yeah, has anybody got anything else they want to chat about?
So look, 3 of us
We
up
do,
here,
so
and
it
we
says
actually
Kicker
finished
needs-
with time left over.
It says Kicker needs a standalone DSP. Yes, I totally agree, and it's.
You never know,
we're,
right?
we're working on some things. All I can say is it's at a snail's pace because of you guys know this. Look, these would be out a long time ago if it wasn't due to supply chain issues. So it's in the works.
Yeah, there would have been amplifiers we would have had out in March.
I mean, I'll be honest with you. Don't hold your breath. You're not going to see it at CES or anything close to that. But
and just, for those of you guys that don't know, the DSP chips and the Bluetooth chips, I mean, they're really the ones on back order.
Yeah, they're hard to find, and then when you do, you're paying 4 and 5 times more than what you ever did before. So it's rough. We know. DSP, we hear you.
Oh, here's a good question. This is really common. Why would my sub-channel on a 5-channel amp keep cutting out?
Could be a couple reasons, right, Ken?
That's right. So it depends on how the amp's designed. It could be under voltage, and of course that sub-channel is pulling more power. It could be actually poor amplifier design, and the power supply inside the amplifier isn't able to power that.
You won't find
channel.
that with any of ours, though, right?
No, we don't have that issue. And on that note, we beat the tar out of our amplifiers before they go into mass production.
Didn't you used to do that?
I did.
Wasn't that your job?
Yep. Before I was in this team here, it was real world testing.
His job was to break gear.
You beat the tar out of it, and then take it to 11 to see what it takes to fail.
And then they take it back to R&D, and they basically figure out what's going to make it not break at that point.
We had a whole lot of testing, parameters to meet and ways that I could, drive it to 11 or to 12.
Beyond 11.
Yeah.
But probably the most...
You get Mythbusters with it. So take it as the myth says, and then what does it take to actually replicate
Jamie and Adam
and to catch this thing on fire? So it was a cool job.
Probably the most common answer why the subsection would be cutting out on the amplifier is just a wiring problem. It may have too low of impedance, may have it wired wrong, might have a shorted wire somewhere in the vehicle, might have a voice coil that rubs when you turn it up.
Simple loose connections at the fuse holder at the battery, and then back at the amplifier itself, at the terminal block on the amplifier. I see that all the time.
So why don't we talk about that real quick? You start talking about if you have a problem, how do you find out where it is? What are the steps for troubleshooting? If you've got your amplifier shutting down, you got it wired right. Well, there's a couple ways that, you start approaching that, or this signal, you just hooked up your system and something's not sounding right. What I always tell people is go to the middle of the chain. You've got a head unit, and you got an amplifier. Go to the middle of the chain and test it there. If the signal or it works at that point, everything in front of that is working properly, and it's wired properly. It's something farther down the chain.
Basic troubleshooting techniques is isolate and then move up or downstream. So it could be as simple as using an RCA to 3.5 adapter, plugging in your cell phone directly into the amplifier, so you have a known good signal.
Output, yeah,
to have a known good signal going into the amplifier, and you're like, oh, all of a sudden it works. So the RCAs, from the RCAs themselves or the head unit, isn't outputting music, and then you can work. And if it still doesn't work, all right, well, I know
the head unit
signal
is working, and you do that. Well, maybe you got to cut out. You didn't run your cables right, and when you move the power seat back, you cut your RCA in half.
Yeah, for sure.
You've seen stuff like that before.
I absolutely have. Yeah.
There's a good question here. The 20K giveaway. Daniel, 20K giveaway. We're waiting for Kip to be in full health so he can do his full tilt boogie impression.
We can't do it justice.
No,
so.
He's been talking it up for so long. It would be
we
kind of
don't want to take that away from
jerk
him.
move to steal his thunder. So hopefully next Tuesday.
Here, John, this is right up your alley.
Uh-oh.
Helpful tips for problems with active noise cancellation when installing subs.
Got to figure out, basically, you'll need to go online, figure out where the microphones are. Right. I mean, there's a lot of good information, and don't just stop at one. I think I did a 2017 Chevy, like an Envoy or something. It had microphones above every handle, above each door that you had to unplug. In that particular vehicle, there was you couldn't just unplug those, you had to cut the wires.
Right, so go online, see what you can find first, see if there's somebody that's already been down that road before. If they haven't, unplugging the microphones or disconnecting them is usually the first thing you can do. It's not going to be the solution for every single system out there, but it is a very common fix for various ANC systems out there.
And be careful which microphones you unplug or cut, because some of the
Bluetooth
Bluetooth or the OnStar. And I guess that's something else, I want to mention, talking about, troubleshooting and knowing things ahead of time. I just did an installation on a 2019 Subaru, or 2021. Anyway, it was a newer Subaru, and it had that Starlink, which is like OnStar. And I actually did the Key 200.1. The system sounded incredible, but I got this warning on the radio. It said your Starlink is not working, and I'm like, I didn't have anything to do with that. So panicking, like, what are you going to do? So
new cars, man.
Go on the line, look it up, and sure
sometimes.
enough, what happens with the amplifiers, when you put our amplifiers in line, using the speaker outputs of your factory system, they don't put enough load on those speaker wires, so the radio thought the speaker became disconnected.
How did we miss that topic? Dummy loads.
Yep. So
dummy loads, man.
The
You're
radio
slacking.
thought
Short notice is what I blame on that.
The speaker was not connected, and that's a safety feature. So you got to make sure that you keep all those safety features enabled. So it said, hey, the speakers aren't connected, so if you get in an accident, you can't talk to ours, or Starlink, as it was. And it was a really, really, really easy fix, because on the end of that key amplifier,
put in the key 200.4.
On the end of the key amplifier is something called an amp detect.
Radio detect.
Yep, radio detect. That puts a 65 ohm dummy load on to satisfy that system. But not knowing that, that could have been a whole bunch of R&D that could have been really expensive, take it to the dealership, only to find out that it was just by adding the amplifier, not knowing about that load.
Right there
and OnStar's the same way.
We got a question. Big Z would like to know, Ken, how would you install a snowman with a 200.4?
How would I personally do it?
All right,
so
and there's a lot of different ways to do it.
You can. So it depends on what you're going to do with the door speakers.
It depends on your goal, obviously.
Sure.
You go right back to the beginning. What are you trying to accomplish?
What are you trying to accomplish? And then are those door speakers being replaced too? You're trying to power that off the key? I'd probably go ahead and just put the whole pod on one channel. You can bi-amp them. That's why we have two separate speakers, speaker wire outs. So if you want the tweeter and the mid-range bi-amped, you can do that with the key amplifier. Turn this towards the camera a little bit. And then our two wires. You can do that with the key amplifier. You flip one of the dip switches over to bi-amp mode, and then you'll put the tweeters on the front channels of the key, and then those mid-ranges on the rear channels of the key. You get all the power on that on the tweeter pods.
50 watts by 4.
Yeah,
4
so
ohms.
that's plenty of power. That'll sound great. But one of the main reasons you bi-amp is so you can have different time correction values to make up for speakers being in different places. So of course, if I've got door woofers, and then again I've got tweeter pods or tweeters up on the dash, they have vastly different time correction values they're going to need. So that's when bi-amping really shines, and that's why I would put the whole pod on one channel, and then put the door woofers on the rear channels, and call it bi-amped in that fashion.
And that would work fantastic.
Yep. So you can have different time correction values where you really need it. So those door speakers and the dash pods would have two separate time correction values.
Here's another good follow-up question. The notorious RV8, she's asking, why doesn't the Key 204 have a DSP-controlled sub output to feed the Key 501?
We talked about that even before it was released. We talked about doing it.
Yeah, and we didn't do that because?
Size.
It looks like you wanted to answer it.
Timing was one. We wanted to get that amplifier into the market, and then we would have had to completely redesign it. This basically had a very specific product it was targeting, which is very similar in size and price, and that would have taken
folks that have been
away
in car audio a while, especially been an installer or a
big box.
a sales guy, know the amplifier we're talking about that we were trying to go after when we made this guy here.
So that had all the.
It was already heads and shoulders better than what it had, and of course, like he said, physical size and then cost. There's a price point we had to hit because of that competitor amplifier that we were trying to compete against.
Well, remember, since that thing goes through and does all the equalization, corrects everything, you can take the rear output of that or the front output of that amplifier if you don't bi-amp and run that into one of our amplifiers.
Yeah, if you need more power, you
run
can
it
certainly run that
CXA,
too.
and the CXA amplifiers take 400
John,
watts.
in the Journey, you've got a key amplifier as a preamp, as just a DSP, an easy DSP to set
Driving
up.
a CXA 360.4.
Runs through a larger amplifier, and he says it's no joke. I don't think I've actually heard it before. Well, COVID's made everything difficult.
Yeah, it's been so long.
Yeah, this is the closest we've sat.
I haven't heard it for a couple weeks. I haven't been able to drive it.
Yeah.
Well, guys, we are down to the last 5 minutes, so I suspect we ought to wrap things up.
Cool. Thanks for joining us, guys. If you guys have any questions, you obviously feel free to hit up our tech support.
And don't forget to smash that like button.
And subscribe.
Subscribe.
And we're here, Facebook and YouTube, 7:30 Central Time, every single Tuesday.
Same bat time, same bat channel.
Tuesday, 7:30 Central.
And you should see Kip next Tuesday, but if you don't, you'll see at least 2 of these 3 mugs.
That's
and
right.
if you guys got suggestions for other things you want us to cover, feel free.
Yeah, give us a shout.
Reach out, let us know, because like I say, we're here for you guys.
Whatever you want to talk about.
Our jobs, this company does not exist without you guys. So we're pretty much slave to you guys. So I don't want to have to get a real job. I know.
That's right.
This has been a lot of fun, and
Yes,
get
sir.
to play with music and cars and audio. So
sir.
that's about all we have. I think it's a wrap, guys.
Yeah, Aaron, take us out.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. Ken, John, this is Aaron. We'll see you guys next week.
Thanks, guys.
Kippolicious. Good evening, everyone. Twisted Tea. Good evening, everyone. Be sure you get that schmedium. Twisted Tea. Hippopotamus. Cold beverage. Schmedium. Midler. Out in BFE. Out in BFE. At the end of the day, full. Good evening, everyone. Tuesday. Full Tilt Boogie.